What's up, y'all? It's your girl, Dedicated Diva, and welcome to my podcast. Now, I know you guys read the title, so let's get straight into it. But before that, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe for more podcasts like this, and let's get straight into it. Now, I'm going to go into a little backstory just to tell you guys how how I kind of noticed everything was out of whack. Now, when I was around, I would say 16, 17, 18, I started taking birth control pills. And it was because my cycles were so heavy. Every time I came on my period, I had these long, drawn out periods with killer cramps. And I know almost every woman, every girl, every female can attest to this. Period cramps are the worst cramps that you will ever get. Now, fast forward, um, I was 21 when I had my son. After I had my son, I felt like, that I was just going to leave birth control alone. Wasn't going to worry about it. But maybe a year after he was born, cramps, heavy cycles, all that jazz came back. I was like, no, I just don't feel like it. So for about 10 years on and off, I would say about 10 years, not even 10 years, guys. Let me see. For about 7 to 8 years on and off, I was on the depot shot. I was like, I am not finna start cramping, but while I was on the depot shot, I started to notice my bones would hurt, um, kind of getting chunky out of the blue, couldn't keep weight off. It was just a whole lot of. And I just didn't feel like, keep going through. My hip would hurt all the time, my knee would hurt all the time, my hair seemed like it's thinning out, my eyes starting to do the little bulge thing. I'm getting belly fat that I couldn't get rid of. So I'm like, okay, looked up everything. I knew that it had to be the depot shot. Got off of that a little while. I would say it was a little while after I got off the depot shot. I ended up having my daughter. Now, this was just about 7 years ago because her birthday is coming around. I started to think like, okay, when I got off, I was, dropping weight. I could actually exercise and get the weight off. My hip and knees and different things like that, it stopped hurting. So I was like, okay, I'm on the right path. But the cramps and things started to come back again. So I got on the depot shot for maybe like, I would say 3 years, 3 years, and found out that wasn't the thing for me. I wasn't, I just need to rid myself of it. Now, in finding out that I need to rid myself of it, I would say a couple months later, this is when I start to notice when I come on my period. Now, I was thinking it was because I was older, because I'm 36. And I'm thinking just because I'm a little older now, this is the reason why, my period is hitting me totally different. I mean, guys, I would get to the point to where I felt nauseous, I felt lightheaded, I felt cold, heart palpitations, my toes would start tingling. I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, I'm going down and through there with my period and without, having any type of birth control method to stop it, because the only reason why I was on any type of birth control method was to basically cut my period in half or nothing at all, because it was bothersome. And I'm starting to notice that now it seems like I'm starting to get all these symptoms. And this is where the shit hit the fan, guys. Now, after I had my daughter and I got on the double shot, get back off, it seemed like my body went basically haywire. I don't know if it was just tired of the birth control methods that I was using, or if my body was just, you know, trying to snap me back into line. But guys, when I tell you, every single summer, every time the grass grows, I'm out in the yard. I love cutting the yard. Well, mowing the lawn. I love planting flowers. Anything outside, I love doing it. I've never had a problem with passing out for any reason. I can never actually think of a time that I passed out for any reason. I was outside and it was 2 summers ago and I passed out. And I could remember everything up to me just totally blacking out. And it wasn't that hot outside or anything like that, but I can remember that I had a period like a week before, and I remember telling myself, since I bleed so heavy and since I have cramps, I need to wait at least a week before I get back to doing anything that I normally do, just because. Well, I ended up passing out like a fool. I didn't go to the hospital just because I felt like, okay, it was a little hot, my period was heavy, nothing. But after that, I can remember feeling like foggy. My It's like I had brain fog each and every day. And with, taking my vitamins and drinking water, things would get better, but I was like, okay, that shouldn't be there. So when I feel like I'm at least 95%, I'm going to get up, get a doctor's appointment, go to the doctor. So that's what I did. Now, I would say over the span of 2 or 3 months, I went back and forth to my doctor at least 6 or 7 times. I went to specialists, doing MRIs, EEGs, EKGs, ultrasounds of my neck, different things like that. And everybody, is telling me, everything is fine. We don't see anything. But I can remember when I was going to get the ultrasound of my neck, I ran into a younger guy, and he told me that he asked me why was I coming in, and I was so young to be coming in for the things that I was coming in for, because he had to read through my chart to get everything in line. And he told me that the symptoms that I was having, that he was having the same thing, and he found out he was anemic. And he was telling me about, I should take the iron supplements, and even though they kind of get you like constipated at times, make sure you have chocolate nearby, or something to kind of fix things when things seem like they're going downhill. Because I had times to where when I was driving, and just say it could be a couple of days before my period, while I was on my period, or a couple of days after, I would feel drained. It's like out of nowhere, it seems like I would go from feeling 100 to feeling like 18%. It's like someone just drained the battery within seconds. And every time I was driving, and my kids and my mother is always with me because I have to help my mother around, doing little things for herself, I would always have to stop. I would always have to go in a Walgreens or something, find the sweetest chocolate that I could find, even if I didn't like. Okay, one thing about myself is I hate coconut. I hate the taste of coconut. I hate the taste that it leaves in your mouth. Guys, when I tell you, I went and I got the sweetest chocolate. It just so happened to have coconut, and I didn't even care. And it seems like by the time I took maybe 3 or 4 bites off of that candy bar, and I brought me a water and a Coke, drunk the whole Coke down, ate the whole candy bar, I felt just fine. So that's when it kind of started kicking in on, kicking into me that something was wrong. After this, I end up going back to my doctor again, because I'm like, okay, something has to be wrong, because I keep feeling these ways. I haven't passed out. Of course, I know the things not to do now because I don't want to pass out. She told me that I should go to a cardiologist. Now, It's a cardiologist where I stay at, and my mom and my auntie went to her, and everyone kept, telling me that she's the best at what she does. Guys, I'm telling you, let me see. I went to her about 2 to 3 weeks ago. That was one of the best things that ever happened to me. She looked through my chart, and mind you guys, when I went to my doctor, she kept telling me that everything was fine. When my cardiologist that never seen me before, the only time she seen me was that morning, that day, that rainy morning. Guys, she brought so much sun. She brought, she gave me hope. She let me know that I was anemic. Every blood test that I had took for that doctor within that 2 year time frame, it said that I was anemic. And she said what was going on is that I was a severe anemic when it came to the point to me coming on my period. So that's why everything went downhill. I always would have to lay down. It seemed like my blood pressure would always be off because I was anemic. Now, mind you guys, I even went to the doctor one of these times when I was on my period because I felt so washed out. I just didn't understand. And this was before I started taking vitamins and, different things like that. But even with the vitamins in my system, she said at one of those times when I went, I was a severe anemic and I should have been in the hospital. Guys, when I tell you this totally it blew me away because I'm like, all this time I could have died just because this doctor, didn't read my test results right. And she's one of those type of doctors where she think that herbs and different things like that can work, or if you balance out your diet, it can work like that. And I'm not saying that it can't, but if you have a severe problem going on, she should have told me, and she never did. So my warning signs of being anemic was that all the time. I always joke about it because I always say that I'm like a fish. I'm always cold. Now, not when it's like hot outside or something like that, but I'm always cold. Like right now, with me sitting in my chair, my toes, some of my toes on my right foot get numb. Now, some of the other side effects, when it's kind of at its peak, or when I feel kind of like at my worst, I get lightheaded, heart palpitation, I feel drained, and this come with like my really heavy periods. And I just had a period that passed, and it wasn't that bad, but it was there. Don't ever let anyone tell you. And I had a doctor to tell me this a while back, and I didn't understand because I was a teenager. But she said, don't let anyone ever tell you anything about your body because you know your body better than anybody. And where I kept getting told, nothing is wrong with me from my doctor, that's what I was taking in my head. And guys, when I tell you, it was literally running me insane. I was depressed. I was getting stressed out really, really bad. My anxiety had started to kick in. And for my cardiologist 3 weeks ago, so this was going on for like 2 years, for my cardiologist 3 weeks ago to tell me this is what, been going on for that long. I wanted to give that lady the biggest hug and the biggest kiss. I was so amazed that she caught what was going on wrong. I say that to say this, guys. Whenever you feel like something is going on with your body, you know your body. If you go into a doctor and they keep telling you, well, no, everything is fine, I don't care how good that doctor seems. Because at this point, I had switched doctors because my other doctor wasn't telling me anything either. No matter what anyone is telling you, listen to yourself. Now, some of the things that I do to help myself out, if you find yourself in the same situation like I did, and you go into a doctor and they keep telling you everything fine, and you know for a fact something is wrong. And I even had my doctor to tell me, you shouldn't run on Google to find out everything wrong. Guys, when I tell you, when I Googled my symptoms, and that's so funny because I'm always getting on my cousin about Googling her symptoms. Whenever you Google your symptoms, and your symptoms are just like whatever that you're reading, and you may not have all of them, or you may have all of them and some more, go by what you see. Some of the things I started doing to help myself is I always make sure that I have iron around, like little iron supplements. I make sure I always have them around. Now you have to look into it to see how much you should be taking, because you don't just supposed to take iron like that. So I'll try to give you guys a little link or something into how much you should be taking, and something that you guys can look into. I try to put it in the description box. But if I don't, it's easy, guys. Just Google it. Just do an internet search and to try to see what you should be taking. I make sure I always have chocolate around. I make sure I always take my vitamins now, and I always make sure that I take in at least how I drink at least 4 water bottles a day. And I think that's like the 16 ounces. I take in water constantly. I try to stay away from drinks, because with the heart palpitations and all that, I just try to stay away from drinks. And I like things like fruit juices and Gatorade and different things like that. That's help. Now, I can honestly say that I never go back on birth control. And if I do, it's only because my cardiologists think that that's the best thing, because it's making me have heart palpitations. It's like when everything kind of get out of whack and out of sync, and I feel like that disconnect with my body, the lightheadedness, it makes me have heart palpitations, and it's messing with my heart. So that's the only reason why that I would go toward any type of birth control method. And so I'm going to wait for these test results to come back when I go back in like 2 weeks, just to see what goes on, and I'll make another podcast. And if I do, it'll be something that's going to last for at least 5 years, so I won't have to do anything extra. And then when that comes out, I give it a break, and then I retake it over again. If you feel like you're anemic, if you feel like anything is wrong with you, you take the proper steps that you need to take. Because if I hadn't got up and I hadn't made the appointment to go to this cardiologist, my doctor never followed back up with me to go to a cardiologist, period. She told me she was, but it never happened. So if I hadn't got this cardiologist to see me, I don't know what would have happened. But I'm going to be back with more podcasts like this and a little bit more later on this week, next week. I'll see you guys then.